Marty Friedman didn't leave Megadeth for just one reason, but one guitar solo may have been the moment the cracks became impossible to ignore. By the late 90s, Megadeth were no longer the same band that made Rust in Peace or Count Down to Extinction. Their sound was shifting, their pressure was different, and Marty Friedman was starting to want something outside the world of Megadeth. But on one song from Risk, a decision was made behind the scenes that would turn those tensions into something much bigger. Before Marty Friedman left Megadeth, he helped create the version of Megadeth that many fans still consider untouchable. When he joined the band in 1990, Megadeth were already respected and technically insane, but they were also unstable. Guitar players had come and gone, lineups had shifted, and Mustaine was still looking for someone who could stand next to him without disappearing behind him. Marty was not just fast, he was not just technical, he had a melodic sense that made his solos feel like songs inside the songs. He could play something exotic, emotional, strange, and still make it fit inside Megadeth aggression. On Rust in Peace, the difference became obvious. Songs like Tornado of Souls and Hangar 18 did not just show that Marty could keep up with Megadeth, they showed that he could give the band a new identity. And that identity carried into the years that followed. Countdown to Extinction made Megadeth bigger, Euthanasia made them more darker and more controlled, Cryptic Writings pushed them closer to mainstream rock, without losing the band sets. Through all of it, Marty's guitar playing was one of the things that made this era feel special. For a while, it looked like Megadeth had finally found the guitarist who could last. But there was a problem. The same thing that made Marty so valuable also made him harder to contain. He was not the kind of musician who wanted to repeat the same version of himself forever. The more Megadeth moved away from pure thrash metal, the harder it became to answer a simple question. What was Megadeth supposed to be now? For Dave Mustaine, the band still had to survive. They needed songs that work on radio, songs that could reach a bigger audience, and songs that could keep Megadeth relevant in the music scene. For Marty, evolution meant something else. Marty was not just thinking about making Megadeth a little more melodic. He was hearing music for outside the normal world of metal. He was interested in pop, Japanese music, strange melodies, and ideas that did not always fit inside what people expected from a band called Megadeth. Megadeth were trying to become something new, but not everyone seemed to agree on what that new version should sound like. Because for some fans, it would sound like Megadeth had gone too far. For Marty, the bigger problem may have been the opposite. Maybe Megadeth had moved far enough to leave the old version of the band behind, but not far enough to give him the freedom he was really looking for. And then came Breadline. On the surface, Breadline was not the most aggressive song on Risk. It was a more melodic, radio-friendly song, exactly the kind of track that showed how far Megadeth had moved by 1999. Marty later said Breadline was his favorite song on the album at the time, and that the solo he recorded for it was his favorite solo on the record. But behind the scenes, not everyone felt the same way about that solo. According to Marty, the band's managers thought the solo was too happy and too melodic, which is almost ironic, because Breadline itself was already one of the more melodic songs on the album. And instead of simply bringing Marty back in to redo it, the solo was replaced. Dave Mustaine later said that when the issue came up, he gave management three options: mute the solo completely, bring Marty back to redo it, or have Dave record a new solo himself. But the real damage was not just that the solo changed, the real damage was that nobody told Marty. He showed up excited to hear the final mixes. Breadline came on, the song reached the solo section, and the guitar part he expected to hear was gone. It was Dave's solo now. Marty described the moment as shocking. He said his mouth dropped when he heard it, and that he was furious nobody had told him before the song was already mixed. Marty Friedman did not leave Megadeth only because of the Breadline solo. The Breadline incident mattered because it landed on top of everything that was already happening. By that point, Marty was no longer thinking like a Megadeth guitarist. He was thinking like an artist who wanted a different kind of freedom. He wanted to explore melodies, sounds, and styles that did not always make sense inside of a metal band.
And I just needed to, there was so much more that I wanted to do, so much more musically I had to say, and I thought that Megadeth could go on with their goals a lot better with a different person in tow, and they did.
And Megadeth, at the same time, were caught in their own identity crisis. They were trying to evolve, but they were also trying to remain Megadeth. They wanted radio songs, but they still had to carry the weight of their thrash metal legacy. So Marty was stuck in a strange place. The band was evolving, but maybe not in the direction he truly wanted. And the old Megadeth, the version built around sharp riffs, dangerous energy and guitar battles, was not really there in the same way anymore either. If one of his favorite solos on one of his favorite songs from the album could be replaced without him even knowing, then the problem was bigger than one guitar part. So when Marty finally walked away, it was not just because of one solo, it was because the version of Megadeth he belonged in was disappearing. For Megadeth, it was the end of one of their greatest guitar partnerships. For Marty Friedman, it was the beginning of a completely different career. And for fans, it left one question that still matters. Do you think the Marty Friedman era was the definitive Megadeth lineup, or do you think another version of the band deserves that title? If you want more stories about metal and the biggest turning points in metal history, subscribe to the Metalverse.